Hey guys, in this video, we're just going to be looking through the login functionality. We're not going to be doing any modifications or any work too much. I just want us to have an appreciation of what a login process really is. Now, I'm sure we all use systems. I mean, you would have probably logged into some form of system to be able to consume this very video. And so you are familiar with the fact that to log into a system, you have to provide some name, some unique identifier for you, and then provide a password, which, well, if either one is incorrect, they will reject your attempt to gain access to the system. Now, in simpler terms or in IT terms, talking about, the whole flow between the form and the database and the logic in between, what really happens is that you put in a name, you put in a password, you click enter, something collects your information and then checks if that name and this password exist in the database. And so that's what we want to see exactly how our application or how .NET Core actually helps us to accomplish that kind of functionality. So I'm already logged in here as test.test.com. I'm going to click logout. And then we're back to square one where we have login and register. So we have a few users in the system already. I'm just going to click login. And then on our login screen, they're asking us for our email and password. And once again, we have access to the login page. So we can customize this. We can remove this if we want. We can change the labeling. We can make our text boxes bigger, our buttons bigger, whatever it is we want to do, we can do. But for now, I'm not troubling the aesthetics too much. I'm just focusing on the functionality. So when we provide an email, and I'm going to say test@test.com, and then I'm going to provide a password, which is P@SSWORD1. And then I click login. What's going to happen, and I'll just bring up the code. I'm not in debug mode, but I'm just going to bring up the code and we look at the function together. So I'm finding login and looking at the code behind, or the Razor, the code file for the Razor page. So I'm just going to open up this code file and then we'll just look through what happens together. So we see that we have a model. It's inheriting from the page model. We have our initializations and dependency injection stuff happening up there. We have our input model. So they try to keep the same name as they go across. There's nothing special about the name input model. They just try to keep the same name so it doesn't look too confusing. But you could call this one login model, and then another page you call it register model, etc., etc. But well, granted, you can't do that because they already have that. So I'm just pointing out that the use of input model in both the login and the registration page, it's not any keyword per se. It's just that that's what they are calling the class. So we have our models and our properties that are being bound to the form. And then inside the input model, we see here that we have a field for email, which is required, and it's of type email address, which means that it must be email address format. We also have our required password, and then we have something which is a Boolean for remember me or not. On get, it renders the page. Pretty much that's what it does. It just says return URL. If it's null or empty, display messages if needs be, set up that return URL, sign out if anything, so that you can have a clean login process. It tries to clear any cookies that might be there. And then on the post, that's where the work really gets done. So once I click submit or I click login on the form, it triggers the post action, which then sets the return URL, validates the state of the data that is the validity of the data that is being submitted. And then it goes on to say result is equal to sign in manager dot password sign in async. So password sign in is going to pass in, and you can just hover over the function and then you'll get a hint as to what it is requiring. So it really requires the username and the password to sign in. So it's saying, give me a username, give me a password, give me a Boolean, give me a Boolean. That's what it's asking for. So we're passing in the email because we're using the email as the username. At least by default, that's what it is. So unless we change it on the registration form and change the logic, then we don't need to change this. But email, input.email and input.password, And then they're asking, do you want to remember me? So that's what they mean by persist. Should I persist this person's information even after they close the browser? Should they come back and still be logged in? So unless you take remember me, well, whatever you decide, that's gets set. And then it kind of tells that the lockout on failure is true. So that means if somebody comes and tries to log in, or you have a failed login attempt, then lock it, right? So then this function really takes your information, hashes this password, because remember, our password is not stored the way we spell it, or we would identify it on a piece of paper. That's not how it's stored in the database. So this function is responsible for transforming the data into whatever form is necessary, checking it against the records in the database, and then saying yes or no. And then that is what gets stored. So the result gets stored and it has a flag, was it successful or not? So if it was successful, that means person was logged in and they are now redirected to the home page. All right. And then if based on the outcome of the result, then different actions can be taken. And that's pretty much it to log in. And then later on, they actually have this function on post send verification email, meaning this is similar to what we saw in the registration page, where it's sending some verification to confirm your account. If you try to log in before you've confirmed the account, then they would kind of trigger this. So all of those are there for use. Of course, we can take out what we don't want and customize what we want, in a particular way, but the foundation is already set. So I'm just going to confirm that the login functionality works by just clicking login, and then the experience is that we get redirected to our homepage, and we can see that we are clearly logged in because they're identifying us by our username, or in this case, the email address. Whatever value stored in the username section, that is what they know us as. If I click, then we go over to manage, and then manage allows us to set up our profile. So all of these, once again, are pages that we have access to. And we know that profile has much more to it than just username and phone number. Note, you can't change the username, right? Or at least by default, they're saying you can't change the username. But we can change all of that if we want. We just go to profile, and let me just find it. Oh, it's in manage. So we have to go into manage, and then I can find the profile view, which, I'm sorry, maybe I'm looking for the wrong. So it is /manage/index. So it's really account /manage. And remember that the first page that you would load is usually index. So I'll just have to find the index file. There we go. And that is our profile. We see our username and the phone number. And if we go into the code behind, then if we wanted the full profile of the user, then we would have to put in more properties inside of the model that is being bound to the view, and then allow us to actually, add or subtract from the person's profile page and what they can and cannot change. All right, and see here where they put in the flag disabled. So that's literally all that disables that input for username. They just said disabled. I can remove that and then allow the user to be able to change their profile or change their username if they need to. And then on post, meaning this person has submitted some change, then we can put in code to make sure that we're accounting for any modifications that they may have made to their profile. Now, as a final act, I'm just going to walk you through what happens or what the code looks like for the header section. And okay, so this is using a seemingly different layout page than the one I have. Well, I'm just going to go back and go back again. And I'm just going to walk you through the code that governs what happens in this section when we're logged in, what we see, and when we're logged out, what we see. And that is available inside of the shared views. So I'm just going to collapse our areas all together and go down to views, then shared, and then we can look in our login partial. So our login partial, basically, it inherits the same sign-in and user manager that we've seen. And then they just say if signinmanager.isSignedIn. So this is like a check to say, is there an active user session right now? If there is an active user session, meaning somebody has signed in, then I want to display in the nav bar a link to the manage and the text hello at user.identity.name. So whatever the username is, whatever is in the username column of this user who is logged in, that is what will be printed as a result of that. So I can change all of this. If I don't want to say hello, I just wanted to say the username, that's fine. And also there's the logout button that when we click logout, it just goes to the logout path, which terminates the session. And if there is none, so this is if there is a logged in session, and then the else is just saying that give me the register link and give me the login link. And that's basically all there is to login. So once again, you can customize your experience. If you need any assistance, you have a particular idea in mind and you're not sure exactly how to execute it, feel free to drop me a line and I'll be happy to help.